Discussing today how social media plays a part in political change and how it impacted the UK's Brexit and EU membership referendum. Later on, we'll be discussing the concept of e-voting and also a digital democracy. Today's social media following in the UK is 35.7 million people. Clearly, this shows that social media has been used and received for political change. Their thoughts and theories and diagrams, and of course, it's going to influence people's choices. Of course, it's going to be a huge impact on political change if people from all ages, under 18, above 18, over 50, anything to do with political things, undecided, uninfluenced, and they're seeing huge drive towards people actually making a decision online. I'll show you some of the ways social media has impacted the political change and Brexit.
Now, digital campaigning and social media hasn't yet taken over from more traditional means of reaching the voters. You still need to tramp the streets or come on to shows like this, I'm sorry about that, if you really want to get your message home. But things are clearly changing, and both sides in the EU referendum campaign, they're using Facebook, YouTube, Twitter to try to mobilise their own voters and to reach out to new ones. Here's Mark Lebel with more.
Tuning in to social media this past month, there's been...
This is more of a comment than a question. It'll be the last one. David James Williams.
Newsnight on Facebook Live.
Thank you very much for postponing your bedtime.
They're trying to make television social.
Boris's ITV appearance keeping Twitter busy. Some rather anti-social behaviour.
5 seconds to stop others with your future.
And even some S&M.
We have a dominatrix woman where Europe is the dominatrix and the Union Jack is on his knees and he's being told what to do.
Efforts to reach new voters must be in overdrive then.
We'll find out what's going on because we're going to meet the two women who run the biggest Twitter dataset in the UK, or at least that's what they tell me. So we have created a little Twitter lab here. Hello, Claire.
Hi.
She's the techie expert here, and Laura, the politics expert here. We want to find out how both the Leave and Remain campaigns are using the internet to get their message across on Twitter.
Hashtags that have a polarity. When we count those, we see that the number of hashtags that are being tweeted out are 3% for Remain and 97% for Leave at the beginning of the campaign in August. When we look at it now, we have around 25 to 35% Remain, and the rest is then Leave.
The story is always it's the ones most motivated, the ones with the most of an axe to grind that act on Twitter, and that might explain some of the disparities.
So what's the nature of the debate like on Twitter?
Yeah, it's not pleasant.
So here's the big question. What percentage of people who are on Twitter are talking about the referendum?
We reckon from our study that there's about 0.06% of those who are talking on Twitter are actually talking about the European referendum. So it's a really tiny amount of that motivated public. But there's still tens of millions of people tweeting about the EU referendum.
Beyond the echo chamber of Twitter, though, researchers from think tank Demos have found that social media has been motivating large numbers to get out and vote.
During research we've done on the general election, figures coming in the next few weeks, we found that social media is an incredibly important voter mobilisation tool. It's probably convinced millions across the UK to actually vote, whereas they otherwise wouldn't have.
Millions?
Yeah.
And you think that will be reflected in the referendum?
Yes, I do. I think that digital politics is only becoming more important.
This referendum campaign has also seen Facebook tighten its grip on our social lives. As well as its tried and tested targeted ads that helped the Tories win the last general election, there have been 38 million comments, shares and likes globally during chats about the referendum in just 13 weeks, in which 30 million daily UK users have discussed the economy, health and immigration the most.
In order to have success in digital advertising, you need both the people and the money. The Remain side has within it the central strategists from the very successful Conservative campaign. But you also need money to do that, and that's where the Brexit camp are ahead. I don't think that the main impact of social media is really how the central campaigns are doing it. I think the main impact is in the grassroots kind of groundswell of activity that we see happening in their millions. There is something in the anti-establishment message of Brexit. There is something in the kind of electricity and energy which you can see Brexit throwing into this at a grassroots level, which I think has to imply that they're getting a boost, more of a boost from social media than Remain.
Platform for lost thoughts and confused fights into large campaigns. Shouts turned into viral trends and movements mobilised so much of the UK into a community. Social media at grassroots level inhabited a lot of people who didn't know facts. This allowed it to influence many, as we've seen in the EU referendum, and has taught at an accelerating speed. Social media will impact public agenda and drive social change. This shows twice as many Brexit supporters on Instagram, 5 times more than any Remain activists. And the fact that subsequently reduced their following shows that the social media and the way in which they involved themselves impacted their result, which shows directly social media played a part in the EU Brexit, and it played a part in the decision. From this, social media gave people who didn't know facts and only had feelings, right? A standpoint of feelings, what they felt emotionally attached to what decision. This swayed people off. This would clearly sway their decision. This would clearly sway their decision, and the only numbers that did vote in the end, I'm guaranteed if they were swayed by social media, that's why they went for leave. The way they promoted and marketed leaving was very emotional. It spread virally. It left ideas in people's minds of what could be, I think. And that's why it really allowed being on this platform of social media, being through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat even did news stories on their Brexit. It just meant decisions were just getting made for them. All this anger and irritation facilitated it. Everybody could come together and talk about this one thing. The internet was used as a surface to mobilize people to vote, but also to react and show frustration. Social media has millions every single day in one place. Surely this forces a decision. We've seen people that wouldn't have usually voted, we've seen them swayed, we've seen them actually push and drive and go and actually vote for once. I think this is the first time that I've personally known people that have actually gone out of their way and voted. The first time they've actually had a reason to. Being all together is forced to assist influencing political ideas and messages. What the EU referendum has really shown us is that social media can change the public's eye. It can change public agenda and it can drive social change. Why? Why do I think this? Social media has impacted instantly, directly, and constantly. Accountable for everything that they say. During a referendum, during a campaign, we've seen politicians get sacked, we've seen them get fired, we've seen them go to jail, we've seen them get fired, and this is all through social media. This all shows us the answer that it does impact. However, social media isn't always the effect of voting. Before logging on, people have made their mind up. Social media is more to reinforce or establish a viewpoint. We haven't really seen anybody change, or at least not as many as we thought we would. Social media can only really impact onto a certain point, whereas with age there's restrictions. Only young people really use social media really, and how many actually really want to interpret it from being fake and real news. Older people could have got their opinion damaged if they weren't able to go on social media. Would their decision have been different? Would their decision have been changed? 36% of voters were aged 18 to 24, the lowest turnout of all demographics, showing even social media impacts massively on what people can see and learn and think, but it doesn't specifically mean that it urges them or drives them to go out. There was 50 million active users talking about the EU referendum and Brexit. People aged 18 to 24, only 492,306 applied to vote for the referendum. Application engagement was actually very, very low. This is where it's very key. As we've seen, social media is key in getting a lot of people to talk about political change, especially the Brexit, as we've seen over 30 million people concentrating on this topic and talking about it in discussion. Perhaps social media has a domino effect. Maybe if they were talking about younger voters voting and how important it could be for younger voters to get out there, it would have been an increased percentage of them that would have actually left and actually went out to vote. Remember Stronger In, the hashtag? Only one piece of targeted content was created by them during the EU referendum. This clearly shows to Remain was not published on social media correctly. Next discussion will be e-voting. E-voting holds a lot of positives in terms of costs, decreasing of waste with paper, with the ballots, could increase turnout because obviously as we get more and more into the next era and into the future, people are becoming more lazy, they're staying at home, they want to do everything on the computer. This could actually see a lot of people liking e-voting. We could be seeing impacts through the fact that we take away human error. They can't place anything in a different place, they can't misread anything, they can't miscount anything. It stops thousands and thousands of pounds being paid out to employees just to stay up all night reading and counting voters. Think about the amount of voters that could also vote if e-voting was possible. People that didn't even have literacy skills, they could just click page on an iPad and it could all be done. They could have a decision. This is going to impact millions of people. Millions of people would now actually feel engaged to go out. It feels bad saying that, but 90s babies enjoy electronics because they weren't always around. But past 2000s, they've all grown up with iPads. They'll want to vote. They'll want to vote online. From whenever we're voting about anything, the next Prime Minister, the last Prime Minister, every turnout representation has decreased. We need to turn to something, otherwise no one's going to vote. There's just going to be no printing. The actual money, the government don't want to do this. They don't need to do this. Times have passed. We've evolved. Technology has increased. It's got better. We don't need to cost thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on UK taxpayers' pockets, even the government's pocket. The distribution of ballots, what it actually costs to take a truck and transport it, distribute it, but your own security. When you vote, you're meant to have privacy of who you actually are. You're having people send you back on an email what you've actually voted. We won't have anything. Fraud is easier. Electrical fraud. All the software systems have accountability. Accountability which trails wherever you are, whatever you've done, whom you are. That means all the information that's coming to you destroys the secrecy of the voting. It destroys like personal bond you have with voting. At the end of the day, the reason why they're bringing in this e-voting is purely for more votes. It's accessible. It's going to be more popular. It's going to be used everywhere. Why were people reacting to the decision, whereas maybe they should have been reacting to the actual question of whether or not Brexit is a good thing? That's when social media should have impacted. But we've seen that Leave were very, very clever, and they used it as a platform to actually grow and establish a movement, a family, a togetherness of leaving the EU. They used it greatly with younger people who were actually saying stay. They were saying a lot of things on the internet and actually wanting to leave now. And I do believe, again, that social media impacted